Hello and thank you for listening. I'm Bill Levinson and I'm here to talk about climate change, the scam of the century. Here's an overview of what we're going to talk about. First of all, from an economic perspective, energy taxes destroy high-wage manufacturing jobs that make our society what it is. Energy taxes will not even reduce global carbon emissions. Climate activists don't walk their talk. Their behavior is totally inconsistent with any sense of urgency about climate change. And finally, all the talk of energy independence is basically a sham for special interests that stand to profit from climate change, so-called climate change activities. First part, energy taxes destroy high-wage jobs, and we're going to look to the world's foremost authority on national prosperity and affluence, Henry Ford, the founder of the Ford Motor Company. A little bit about Henry Ford's background. What Japan calls the Toyota production system is actually Henry Ford's production system, which Japan later adopted. Henry Ford, by the way, described concepts such as just-in-time manufacturing and design for manufacturing very explicitly in his book, My Life and Work. The Ford Motor Company and the spin-offs to support it made the United States the wealthiest and most powerful nation on Earth. Henry Ford also was the developer of what we now call green and sustainable manufacturing. The fact that Henry Ford performed green manufacturing and sustainable manufacturing doesn't necessarily mean he would have supported caps on carbon emissions. Ford did look for ways to use all environmental waste, or even better, not make it in the first place. For example, Kingsford charcoal is how he disposed of waste from his woodworking operations. Based on his other writings, though, he would not have put up with carbon taxes or cap and trade for an instant. Ford said very explicitly that cheap energy is equal to jobs. This is from his book Today and Tomorrow. His decision on where to build a new factory and also place the very high-wage jobs that went with it depended not on availability of cheap labor, but rather on the availability of cheap energy, and we'll see why in a moment. Henry Ford would probably have fired for incompetence any executive who said they should go offshore to hire cheap labor, because Ford proved through what we now call lean manufacturing, also motion efficiency, scientific management, that any job can be designed efficiently enough to pay a high-wage American worker to do it. However, the energy requirements of many manufacturing jobs, especially in the metals and chemical industries, are non-negotiable with the basic laws of nature, which brings us to our next point. The bottom line is that cap and trade won't even get rid of the carbon dioxide. It will simply encourage manufacturers to ship the high-wage jobs and also all of their carbon dioxide offshore to places that aren't going to regulate so-called greenhouse gas emissions. California has already proven this by its track record of destroying jobs, not only through its tax, regulatory, and economic policies, but also through its energy policies, as we'll see in a moment. It takes an enormous amount of energy to manufacture aluminum. It's hard to get aluminum away from aluminum oxide, and what happened was California ran its energy prices up so high that many aluminum companies simply shut down, resold their electricity. In other words, instead of making aluminum something that's of value to our society and to humanity in general, they simply became non-value adding middlemen, because California's energy policies made it more economical for them to do that. We implement cap and trade, we'll see a lot more dysfunctional behavior of that nature in the future. Okay, high energy costs destroys productivity, destroys jobs, but don't we have to sacrifice some affluence to save the planet? That's what the climate change activists keep telling us. You hear them on radio, we have to join together to save the planet from global warming. Well, let's take a close look at how they behave when they think nobody is watching them. It's a basic tenet of leadership in any organization that you walk your talk. Your behavior matches what you say. And now we'll take a look at what the climate activists do when they think nobody is watching them. There's an excellent online article called Copenhagen Climate Summit, 1,200 limos, 140 private planes, and caviar wedges in the British paper called The Telegraph. Well, private planes and limousines emit far more than anybody's fair share of carbon emissions, and that's not all that happened there. The attendees at the UN's Climate Summit in Copenhagen also rented £650 a night, that's about $1,000 in American dollars, hotel rooms. Now, any of us who have ever worked for an employer know that that's far out of line with any employer's travel and reimbursement policies, and employers don't even pay for first-class air travel, let alone private jets. That says something right there, and everybody who's watching this issue needs to pay very close attention to it. Okay, that's the end of part 1 of this slideshow. Part 2 will show that climate activists may not even believe the premise of their own agenda. Furthermore, when they talk about having to have cap and trade to get energy independence is already available from coal, and the climate agenda people have to suppress coal in order to pursue dysfunctional economic activities. Coal would basically run them out of business, and we'll look at that in the next part. Thank you for listening.